Well, it is good to be here today. So, Father Nicholas,
Yeah.
how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's hot down here, but whatever.
Well, how are things up in the Gump?
Things up at the Gump are getting moving, School year's starting. It's going to be in
School's kicking into gear. I went to McGill the other day. I was there for a meeting. It was exciting to be at my old alma mater and also where I used to work. And you're going to be working in high school this year, aren't you?
I am teaching at Montgomery Catholic this year.
It's great. What are you teaching?
Well, it was interesting. I was asked to do my own elective and to write it from scratch, and so...
So you totally made it up.
Oh, I pulled it out of thin air.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, what's it about?
The title of it is Catholicism and Culture.
Okay.
So it's this look, because, often the church is something that we do on Sundays. It's something that we compartmentalize. Like it's just this little thing about me over here on the side. But, if you look at it, Catholicism, kind of by definition, kind of by what happened to the Incarnation, it has to kind of integrate into every aspect of our lives. And so, you look at the history of the church, the history of society, and the church has always been a strong promoter of the sciences and, all the work that the church has done to push those forward and to develop them, or art or culture or beauty, all those things the church has really been behind pushing. And so this class looks at that and what to do with that now. Yeah,
if you look at churches from the Middle Ages on through the Renaissance, it's the churches there where you find art. It's the churches where you find music and things like that. So are you going to be looking at modern day culture and seeing these things in modern day culture as well?
Absolutely, we will be. We're not. It's not like a history course. We're not going through the decades or through the centuries or through the millennium and looking at it. But we're just looking at it kind of on a principle standpoint. Like, this is why the church is not opposed to sciences, or quite the opposite, is that through the sciences we learn who our creator is.
Wait a minute. I thought we didn't believe in evolution. Just kidding.
Wow. That's a deep topic to go into right here.
Yeah. An interesting point if you don't know already. The Big Bang Theory was proposed by a Catholic priest named Father Georges Lachemin. Anyway, so keep going with what you're saying.
So anyway, the class is going to look at not only as where we can find God in the culture and in the things that we do, but also how God is in the midst of each of us and advancing those things. How with God's help and with the faith as kind of our motivation, our energy that we're looking into these things, and how the world can be advanced because of faith and with faith.
Sure. So you helped come up with the name of our podcast.
I love this name. Now, I am so excited.
It's the StaveCast.
No, it is just
the StaveCast.
It is StaveCast.
So no the.
No the.
So in Spanish we couldn't do this.
No, I guess not. I mean, we can't use the article.
Yeah. Okay. So StaveCast. Why StaveCast?
Well, it's interesting, and so basically, this is an Advent homily that I kind of enjoy to give about once a year. And there are three things that I kind of want to talk about of where this name came from: bourbon, the Blessed Virgin Mary, and each of us.
Now, I like all of those things. I like people.
Okay.
I
hope you like people as a priest.
Yeah, I love the Blessed Mother. She's awesome.
Wonderful.
And I have enjoyed bourbon.
Good. Those are three things that are perfectly good to love.
Good. Okay. Well, why StaveCast then? Explain that to me.
So, it's kind of like the process of bourbon being made that I kind of was intrigued by. I did seminary at St. Meinrad, which is a seminary in southern Indiana, and it's just about 30 miles north of the center of the Bourbon Trail, which is where 95% of the world's bourbon comes from throughout Kentucky. And there really is a line throughout Kentucky where all the distilleries rest. And you can go from one end to the other. But anyway, living so close to the Bourbon Trail, I learned a lot about bourbon and the way that it's made.
Kind of like when I went to seminary in Louisiana and learned a lot about food.
Exactly. You learn about the culture that you're in. And so anyway, in being on the Bourbon Trail, I learned a lot about how, they take the grains and everything, and you can talk about the water and that the water in Kentucky is perfect. But really Kentucky is the home of bourbon for one reason. Do you know what that reason is?
No, I actually don't.
It is entirely based on the climate.
Oh,
That the climate is perfect for aging whiskey in barrels to create bourbon.
okay.
And so, you can go through that whole distillery process where they have the grains and the grains ferment and they make the sour mash and all that. But really the fascinating part for me is that after the grains have fermented and they've distilled it all out, what you get is this clear spirit.
Like white lightning,
White lightning, white dog, moonshine, whatever you want to call it.
white mash.
White mash. It's bitter, it's biting, it's got a burn. It doesn't really have much flavor to it. And so this is the fascinating part. They take that clear raw distillate and they put it into a very specific barrel.
What kind of barrel?
These barrels are made of only Spanish white oak, and they are assembled without adhesive. They make their staves, where we get the name for the cast or for this podcast. And the staves are the little prongs of wood that go to make up the barrel. If you ever look at a barrel, it has several pieces of wood. Each of those is called a stave, and they're held together by nothing but a metal ring. There's no adhesive. There are no nails. Obviously, if there are nails, all the whiskey's gonna pour right out.
Right.
And so they put it all together, and in doing so, they fill this barrel. But before they fill it, they have to char it. And so they take these giant flamethrowers,
Like fire.
like fire,
Yes.
like sticks that shoot fire out,
Cool.
and they put them down in the barrel, and they burn the inside. They char the inside of the wood, and what that does is it caramelizes all those sweet sugars that are naturally occurring in oak trees, and it gives it a good sweet char.
I wonder if oak syrup would be any good. I mean, we could have maple syrup.
It would taste more like vanilla.
Oh.
Actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
It would. And so then they fill the barrel with this distillate and they let it sit for at least 2 years by law. It's not bourbon unless it ages for 2 years. And, some best bourbons are aged 20 plus years. And they just sit in those barrels. And they're rotated to different parts of a cask house where the barrels are stored. But anyway, it's the weather, it's the climate in Kentucky that allows this to happen because as it gets hot in the summer, the pores of the wood expand and soak in all that bourbon. All that liquid goes into the pores and the wood actually becomes saturated. And then in the winter, when it gets cold, the pores contract and they push all the bourbon back into the center of the barrel. And as it breathes, as those barrels breathe, inhaling and exhaling the spirit, that's when bourbon gets its color, its taste, its aroma. And so when you drink bourbon, when you enjoy it, you're tasting the wood. You're tasting the char, the sugars in the oak. So all of this is to say that Mary, as she carried Jesus for 9 months, was kind of the same way. Is that in her womb, Jesus rested. Jesus grew. He matured. But they exchanged characteristics. She fed him, and they shared a bloodline. And they shared this and became more and more like each other in a physical sense. And that the faith is that barrel for us. That is where we get our flavor. That is where we get what makes us who we are as Christians, as Catholics. That we sit and we mature for weeks, for months, for years, for decades to become the faithful people that we are.
Very good.
So all of this is the StaveCast.
Okay, so we're talking about a lot of varied things in our culture and in our milieu here on planet Earth, and how that really and truly affects us as Catholics. So what are some of the kind of things that you think you're going to talk about on the StaveCast?
It could go in all kinds of different directions from what's going on right now or from a style of prayer, because, prayer is kind of fluid. It changes from day to day. It could be, I could pray one way today and a completely different style of prayer tomorrow. And so if there's a particular type of prayer, that's influencing how I'm thinking, how I'm acting. Or if there's a movie that came out that struck me, it really just depends on what's going on.
Sure.
What I'm going to talk about.
Sure. For me, it's a lot of TV and a lot of programs like The Simpsons and Bob's Burgers and a lot of the current cultural TV shows. Because you do find so much faith in there. There's this one episode of The Simpsons that I can't wait to talk about. It's called... Actually, I don't remember what it's called. It's season 16, and it's the one where Bart and Homer become Catholic. And it's got so much richness to it.
That is a great episode.
It's such a great episode. But, movies, television, all these places where we really can encounter our Lord and encounter our faith And it helps to enrich us and helps us make us the people we are. We're not divorced from culture. We're not divorced from art. And in fact, we are called to that which is beautiful because it's a reflection of God. Everything that is beautiful is a reflection of God, who is all good, all true, and all beautiful. Wouldn't you agree?
I would definitely agree. And no matter what place that you're put in to kind of gain your flavor, you're going to pick up the characteristics of what you saturate yourself in.
That's true. And it's very funny. Like, you can preach a homily on bourbon, and it's fine for you to preach that, but I probably couldn't preach that as well. But I guarantee you, I've preached on The Simpsons a number of times. And it doesn't make The Simpsons like a holy show.
No.
It doesn't make like bourbon's not a sacramental, right? It's not.
Are you sure?
It's sure. It is not a sacramental. But what it does is we can see how these places really can fit in, and we see the analogy of faith in those places. So we'll throughout this cast, we'll be talking about all sorts of stuff. We'll be having guests on and speaking about different topics. And so we hope that you'll join us. But this time we're going to take a little break, and we're going to hear a word from our sponsor.
As Catholics, we're natural storytellers. From the parables of Jesus Christ to the brushstrokes of Michelangelo, storytelling is ingrained in our history. It's a part of who we are. And that's not changing anytime soon. As our story evolves, the way we tell it must evolve too. We must embrace new technologies, new forms of communications, and new ways of engaging those already in our midst, and even those who aren't. The new evangelization is no longer some distant dream, yet to be realized. It's here. It's now. It's taking place in our parishes and in our communities. It's transforming hearts and minds. It's literally changing lives. For the first time in human history, we have the ability to connect beyond, to evangelize to the masses. And it's our duty to do just that. Pope Francis encourages us to go forth, to bring the gospel message to the world and to our communities. So what do you say? Let's tell our story together. For more information, visit motivationmediainc.com.
Welcome back to the StaveCast. I'm Father Dan Good, and I'm here with Father Nicholas Napolitano. And we're talking about faith and culture and how faith really does give a flavor to our life, as well as culture gives a flavor to our life. And we're examining these different topics. One thing that really always pops into my mind when I think about faith on television or faith in the world today, I always think about the show Blue Bloods. I don't know if you've ever watched it.
I really never have.
Okay, well, it's a great show. Tom Selleck is on it, and Danny Wahlberg. So not Mark Wahlberg, his brother Danny. And
his brother.
Yeah,
an actor.
yeah. And but anyway, in the show, it's a cop show, but all sorts of things happen on the show. From crimes to serious scandals in the police department and all these things. But the one thing I love is this family, essentially of cops. Every Sunday night they get together after Mass and they have a meal together. And they pray grace, like they say the sign of the cross, and they take turns praying grace. I love that because it to me, it bespeaks a culture of faith. They do share together at Mass. They're all busy. They're all doing a million things during the week, and there's no way they can get together during the week. But one day they can get together on Sunday and they can have a meal together. And it's an expectation that no matter what, you're going to be at that meal as a member of that family. And then there are other shows and other things that are a lot like that. I mean, what do you think?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned kind of that theme in Blue Bloods, because as we were thinking, I was really kind of reflecting back on what has flavored my life, is what has flavored me as a Catholic and even as a priest. And one of the things that I absolutely love to do is to cook for people. I love to sure, it's fun to be creative and fancy in the kitchen, but really, for me, the main thing is that if you create a big meal and you have people over, and the phones go away and people are just there together, it's such a beautiful expression of what faith is, of coming together as a body, right? So you pray before the meal, but then as you're eating, as you're enjoying the food, well, first, you're enjoying God's beautiful creation. And what is better than enjoying it through eating?
Sure, and I wholeheartedly agree with you here. I love food, so yeah.
But second, it's that communal aspect of, we're together, we're here, and to be present. I don't think there's many things in the world that put us in that close quarters, of that together, of putting down the barriers, other than like the Mass and food.
And you guys do a big like parish dinner every month, right?
We do. Every month we have what we call family night, and the pastor, Father Alex, and I, and with some help from other parishioners, we make these big meals and we feed 200 people. We would probably feed more, but we can't physically put any more people in the building.
Do you guys charge for that, or is that like a?
We do, but it's cheap.
Uh-huh.
We keep it low. We break even. We don't make any money on it. We spend every dime on food, and sometimes we actually lose money on it. Because the purpose of it is not to raise money for the parish. The purpose of it is to feed the parish and to give that taste. What does it mean? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like to be a parishioner at St. Bede?
Yeah.
It smells like we are together.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes to what Pope Francis has said about smelling like the flock. I mean, and certainly that's a great way for you to share together with your parish, is to spend them together as eating a meal, to sharing, to having conversations that are legitimate. I love that, and I think you're right. It goes right to what they're doing in the Blue Blood show. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. They're spending that time together. They're spending that time and enjoying each other's company, which is what we need to be refreshed.
Right, and I've heard it from people. Especially people who have visited St. Bede or who have recently joined our parish, is that they complain, and it breaks my heart, but I hear them complain like, at this other church, we were just one of the numbers, and there wasn't any welcoming, we didn't feel like we belong. Well, but what is the faith? Why gather around the altar as a stranger?
Yeah.
The reason we gather is for the sacrifice, but is for the sacrifice of the Eucharist together.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It has to be both.
Well, and it's so true in John 6, chapter 6, verse 37. We hear Jesus say that he will not reject anyone who comes to him. He will not reject anyone. And just so the church can't be a place like of rejection, it has to be a place of welcome, a place of friendship, a place where we are truly the disciples of the Lord Jesus. That's what we're called to be.
Absolutely. And I think coming together for a meal, it does create that space. Mm-hmm. It does create that ability, and it does tear down those barriers that block us from being really present to each other.
Sure. All right, I do have a question for you.
Oh, no.
What's your favorite thing to make?
It really depends on the time of year and what I'm into at the moment,
Okay, well, here we are. We're right after Christmas. We're in January right now. What do you like to make right now?
Right now, I'm kind of in that baking mood.
Ooh.
I kind of like to bake right now.
Well, what do you like to bake?
I just came up with a new recipe for biscotti, of all things. Because, when my mom's at my house, and she was here for Christmas, I kind of host Christmas now as the priest, because it's easier for them to travel than it is for me on Christmas Day.
Sure.
Obviously.
Yeah, if you're doing masses and stuff.
But she loves to sit down in the morning with her cup of coffee and her, little cookie or some kind of pastry. And so I said, well, for Christmas, I'm going to come up with a recipe for biscotti for her. And so I've spent a couple of weeks experimenting with different recipes for biscotti and seeing what worked best, and I think I nailed it.
Oh, good. Okay.
I think I got it.
Now, do you have the little anisette flavor in there and all that?
Not in this one.
Ooh, okay.
This one is just it's rosemary and cranberries of all things.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Well, my favorite thing to cook this time of year, of course, is gumbo. I mean,
of course.
Not surprising that I like to cook gumbo, but
and you do make good gumbo.
And the other thing I learned to make was chili. And you've had my chili. It's not bad.
Chili's not bad.
Chili's not bad. So
you won't hear me complaining if you ever make it for me again.
You certainly I will cook it for you again. And it is true. It's such a great expression of friendship and culture is food. I mean, every culture has its cuisine. Every culture has its different thing that it
Has
does.
its flavor.
Yeah,
Has its scent, aroma.
it does. It does. Well, anyway, we're coming towards the end on our first cast here on the StaveCast. And first of all, we want to thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you'll join us in the future. If you'd like to join us for weekly gospel videos, you can always go to Father Bueno, which is fatherdangood.com. And also you can join us on Facebook.
At StaveCast.
At StaveCast on Facebook. And we'd love to have you guys. And we're so excited about this opportunity. If you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, you can email us at... And we'd really like to thank you again for listening into our show today. May the Lord be with you and bless you. May he strengthen you in his love and mercy. And may he continue to flavor your life with all his goodness. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen. Stay flavorful.
Yes, and we'd like to thank Motivation Media Incorporated and Michael O'Sullivan for producing this show. All right, have a good week.